I would say for the time being, the labor market is still robust. So what we see in the tech sector is we don't see to the same extent in the broader economy at the time being. There is a structural shift in the tech sector, which has been booming for more than a decade. It has been, we have seen strong intake of labor in that sector, and that boom is coming to an end. It's still a sector which going forward will see a lot of growth, but we see a lot of companies who try to find a new version of their business model. For example, the whole idea about advertising was a good idea, was a source of income throughout the long recovery that we have seen, and now going into a slowdown, maybe into a recession, they have to rethink their models at that point. Also, there have been some companies in the earlier stages that have not been profitable, so there have been questions around that one. So from that angle, there are good reasons why we see higher numbers of layoffs at various companies in that sector.
How much value these FANGs, so-called FANGs, or more generally technological firms lost, do you consider them an interesting opportunity at the moment, or do you see the really interesting stuff somewhere else?
Good point. I mean, I mentioned previously today at the time of recording, the S&P has a loss year to date of minus 17%. To make that point, at the same time, the Nasdaq went down by minus 29%. So there is the difference, and that is one of the reasons why we see a lot of pressure on the IT companies and also the employment on their side. Eventually, I think that will turn, but it's in general a sector that is growth oriented. So we need to see growth picking up. We need to see also the impact of interest rates sort of stabilizing, so everything will be attractive. So if we turn our equity calls, I think around that time, the ideas about the IT sector, the tech sector, might also shift. At the moment, we are in the middle. That means we are not on the short or on the long side, and we would see in terms of sectors different sectors on the long and the short side. For example, if we look on the overweights, if we're right with a slowdown, with a shallow recession scenario that we see for the US, then you need to be defensive, and you need to look for strong balance sheet. You need to ideally have sectors that are less sensitive to higher interest rates, and then you don't end up with a tech sector. You end up more with a healthcare sector. You have a staple sector. Energy is also interesting because they have a high cash flow generation, even at the current prices, which have come off a bit. We see China reopening as another theme that might help also stocks there in that sector, and valuations are still acceptable. So these would be some of the picks on the where we would have an overweight. On the other side, sectors where we still see some downside potential would be more coming out of the communication sector. We see one theme I picked up already, advertising slowing down. So many of the companies in that sector would be affected by it.